I hope everyone's well. And this week I wanted to introduce you to my trusty mute and show you some of the terminology that's associated with the non-transposing mute, or the straight mute it's sometimes called. And all it does is it creates a nice distant effect. So if you're playing something a little, atmospheric and there's an echo, then sometimes they'll ask for you to put your mute in to create that echo sound. So makes it a little bit more distant. So that's the difference in sound. It's used a lot in more romantic, I guess, really starting with Mahler. There's so many mute changes, and the terminology, we get used to seeing the German terminology for mute because it is so often used in Mahler. So Dampfer is the word for our mute. In English, we just call it a mute, or the straight mute. We don't have to transpose. We just insert it in the bell and keep on going. It doesn't change the pitch of your horn. In Italian, it would be sordino, French sordine, and often there's also an indication when to remove the mute. So sans sordine, when the composer wants you to go back to playing open normally. With Dampfer, it's mit Dampfer, you put your mute in, and then ohne Dampfer, open again. Or just ouvert in French, they might just say open, play open. And the same thing with English, it's usually mute and then it will say open. So that's obviously when you want to take your mute out. Now the other, it's a technique actually, it's not so much about a mute, but I wanted to talk to you about stopped horn technique and stopped horn terminology, because it's very often called for, and I don't know if you'll see it in your high school band scores or not, but if you do, then this is what you need to know. And I think you will actually. If you're doing advanced band, I think you will probably see this symbol. The symbol for playing stopped horn is a little cross over the note. And that simply means that the note you're playing, supposing it's, let's say it's a third space C, they want an entirely different brassy effect for that note. And it is achieved by closing your hand off. So you're closing off the bell, and if you do have good hand position, then this will be more easily done just simply by starting from where it is. And then I like to tell people to kind of create a seal that goes all the way around the bottom of the palm of your hand. So you're closing it so that you actually can feel there's a real seal there. There's not going to be any air leaking through when you play. And then you have to play almost like a fortissimo, very, very loudly to get the desired effect. So from the C, so that's an F concert. If it's stopped horn, first of all, we make our hand adjustment. Then we have to transpose. Yes, yay, more transposition. Because you are changing the pitch of the instrument. So there's a sort of a general rule which would, and I'll tell you that, it's when you're first starting out, try playing a semitone lower on the F horn. So that C, now I'm fingering a B. It's still going to sound a C. So here's the C. Here's, stop C. So it's, if I were to show you how loud I'm actually playing that note, that's how brassy I would be playing, but it doesn't sound that loud because I've stopped the horn, but it still creates a really brassy, raspy sound. Now, everyone has a different sized hand, a different horn. They're all, every horn has its unique little quirks, and they're certainly not uniform across the board. So, fortunately for us, somebody invented this mute, which is called our stopping mute. And it just replaces the hand. So, the symbol for stopped horn doesn't mean use your mute versus use your hand. It just means create that effect. If it's not working with your hand, if you have a tiny little hand, and I don't have a big hand, so I've had a lot of problems playing stopped horn in tune, and feeling that like those notes are really well centered. Also, I don't have the greatest stopping mute, so that's next on my list of things to save my pennies for, because they're just the technology is getting better and better, and there's some beautiful stop mutes out there on the market, but they're very expensive. So I make do with this one because I don't need it that often. But for low notes stopped, it really helps, because I find even above a middle C, I can't produce those notes in tune. And there's lots of different alternative fingerings you can play around with. So you want to match up the hand or the stopping mute with the fingering that works for you. So let's do that C again. Now I'll try doing it with my mute. See, it's much more secure with my mute than it was with my hand. So if I'm looking for a little bit more stability, I'm going to use my stopping mute. However, there are purists out there who would say, don't do that. Just figure out how to do it with your hand. But we're not those people, so we're not going to worry about that. So stopped horn, gestopft, that's the German. I don't think you'd often see the Italian, and then the French cuivre is an interesting interpretation, because sometimes in a French score you will just see that word and it means play brassy. It doesn't mean stopped. So if it doesn't have the cross over the word cuivre, and sometimes it does, so you automatically know what you're supposed to do. It doesn't always have the symbol, and sometimes it just means play brassily, if that's a word. And in any case, you have to use a lot of air to make those notes speak properly when you're hand stopping or when you're mute stopping. So be on the lookout for the little symbol. Remember, it does change the pitch, so you will have to transpose. Often it's down a semitone F horn, but not necessarily. As you know, there are many alternative fingerings for any given note, so you just kind of have to play around with the one that works the best for your situation. Okay, I didn't want to go on too much about this, but I hope that makes sense. So I've demonstrated the different sound effects with the two mutes and the terminology. I'm not testing you on this, but it's just, good to know. So again, just file that away for someday, and it may be useful. And because I've been doing longer videos, I just wanted to keep this one short and just relate back to our Clevenger book for those of you, and I know some of you are moving on and just kind of branching off and doing your own thing now. That's fine, but don't forget to practice the basics. Practice the slurs, practice the long tones. They're not necessarily called long tones in the book, but the tonal quality reviews, all those 4-beat notes, and you can tie them together and make them 8, 12-beat notes. They're all part of your daily routine, your daily warm-up. And I do stand corrected, because I think I mentioned a few weeks back that Clevenger book doesn't address the slur, and he does. He devotes 3 whole pages to slurring. So I just want to draw your attention to page 31, the slur, and there's some nice little tunes you can practice. New World Symphony and a Bach chorale. So there's some stuff for you to play around with. You're certainly familiar with all the notes by now. The bottom of the page 193, it does go down to a low F. I don't know if we've gone down to F. Some of you might have just already gone down to F. That's fine, that's great. But if you haven't, then C. That's low F on F horn. But if you have a double horn, that is actually, it's not just, we don't just use the B flat horn for the upper register, but for some of those lower notes as well, it just really helps with making those notes speak directly, speak nice and without a delay. So there's your G, and here comes F with your open and thumb. And then as we go down, so F, E, D, all on B flat horn, then low C, back to F horn. And down from there, it's F horn, F horn, F horn, F horn, until you get to the lowest F of all. And that's the fundamental on your open B flat horn. So it's your B flat concert. So it's back to trigger for the lowest F of all. And there it is, rattling away in the basement